Okay, guys. So here we are in the third video in which I analyze the interesting parts of T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, an exercise in imagination which is extraordinary, a brilliant piece of characterization where we get to explore the inner workings of this man's mind. A poem in which this character's crisis goes to explore some of the fundamental realities of our lives, our relationships, our insecurities, our sense of self-worth, the you know the to go back to the allusion to Dante's Inferno at the beginning of the poem, the very meaning of life. What does life mean? And that's all explored in the poem. In the next section, again, his indecision, Prufrock's indecision, is further evident when he talks or asks the question, shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? There we have that kind of bleak urban landscape again. There's lonely men. There's pollution. There's no um there's no beauty in this world. There's no blue sky between the buildings. There's no warmth of the sun. It's always foggy. It's always smoky. The air is never clean. He's lonely. The world is a lonely place. The world reflects his view of the world. His inner self shapes his view of the outer world. And then you have this again, very, very clever and challenging metaphor. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. If you just want to learn a line that shows his brilliance in terms of his control over language, this is a great one. Scuttling is onomatopoeic. You've got the S in scuttling, the S is in across, the S in floors, in silent, and two of them in seas. That's called sibilance. What's he talking about there? So he's describing a crab, a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. What do crabs do? They go sideways. What's he talking about? He doesn't go forward. All he can do is go sideways. Crab doesn't have the human consciousness, the sense of awareness that a human does, but he's saying he's wasted that consciousness. So the image of the crab scuttling, being afraid, cowering, always watching out for the predator. The image of the crab, going sideways, back and forth, sideways, never really making any progress. That's his life. So he's not significant. He's not of merit or of value. He's trivial and unimportant. He's wasted the gifts he's been given. I think his self-disgust is evident in that crab metaphor. I think it symbolizes his sense of procrastination and his self-loathing for the fact that he spent his life kind of sidestepping important decisions. And then we get into the next section where we have a biblical allusion. And it's a really easy one to understand. So, biblical means related to the Bible. In this case, he's referring to John the Baptist. Let's have a read of this. And the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, the ellipse is creating, slowing down, creating that drowsy quality. Or it malingers, stretched on the floor, here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to face the moment of crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker. And in short, I was afraid. I told you this stuff can get to you. Maybe it's because I'm old, but this used to get to me when I was your age. It's so clever. It's got so much going on in it, and it's really really sad. It's sad. There's a sadness here. So let's break it down. So I'm going to start here. Okay. So here again, we have another example of juxtaposition. The trivial reality of his everyday life, having tea and cake and ices. So, eating, consuming, socializing, putting on the face, wearing the suit, putting the tie on. That's modest but expensive. The pin. And then inside that, buttoned down exterior, there's this raging desire to force the moment to a crisis, to just do something, to just bloody give meaning to life. And then the torture of his inner life. He has wept and fasted, wept and prayed. This contrast between what people think he is and what he actually is. And then we have this image of the head brought in upon a platter and the reference to John the Baptist. Now, I'm sure you know the story, the biblical allusion of Salome and John the Baptist and the head being lopped off. And what he's talking about is this idea, like his fear of what if he went and made this proposal and put himself out there, that he could like have his head chopped off. He's terrified of what could happen to him. He's terrified of failure. He's terrified of being judged and laughed at. So that image of disaster is captured by that reference to the reference between John the Baptist and Salome and her anger at him and his ultimate fate. But the most important thing is, he says, I am no prophet. John the Baptist, again, like Michelangelo, was somebody who left a mark behind him. He did something that means he's remembered. But Prufrock, when he thinks about that, thinks of himself, and he knows, and Jesus Christ, I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. He feels he's just failed. There was a moment when he could have given meaning to his life. It flickered, and then the light went out. It passed. The opportunity is gone, and now he's stuck, and he's just waiting for the end. And that's captured when he talks about the internal footman. That's death, holding his coat and laughing at him because he spent his life afraid to do anything. He spent his life paralyzed by indecision, spent his life terrified of being judged, wanting to be the hero, wanting to be the prophet, wanting to have meaning, and wanting to be seen as something that he wasn't. And it all means nothing because he's achieved nothing. Again, this is, when you read this and you read East Coker 4, you're getting into like what, I know when I was your age, I found this stuff really hard, and people like me rattling on about it bored the shit out of me, and I was like, fuck off. Get out and live your life. Embrace the world. Be young, like Yeats. I know you're not studying Yeats, but Yeats say, the young in one another's arms, birds in the trees. When you're young, you want to get out and enjoy life. But this is meaningful, profound stuff about the meaning of life. Like, what gives life its meaning? Why don't we seize our opportunities? What is this terror inside us that holds us back from achieving what we want to achieve, if that is the case? It's certainly the case with Prufrock. Yeah, I'd love it. And then I'm going to finish in this video. And then again, more questions. And would it have been worth it after all? More repetition. After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, all the trivial, remember the trivial reality of his life? Among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question? I say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one setting a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. Lazarus died. It's another biblical allusion. But then there was a miracle. He came back to life. So Prufrock is saying, if I got the gumption up to ask her to marry me, I'd be like Lazarus. I'd be back from the dead. But then again, he immediately says, "Oh shit! What if I did even get that up? What if I did even get up the strength or the gumption or the bravery or the ability to tell her, that I want her?" And then she turns around and says, "That's not our relationship. That's not what I meant at all." And then humiliation, and you can feel him cringing inside, you know. And then the repetition, that is not it at all. And he left there exposed, and suddenly the world will see what he really is: weak and frail and weak and frail and vulnerable and pathetic. Pathetic. That's what he is, and he sees himself as that. So he hides. He hides. And all of this is going on under the surface of this. I keep on coming back to it. This morning frock, this perfect tie, this perfect frock collar, this pin, this outer appearance, which covers the turmoil which goes on inside. Would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels and the teacups and the skirts that trail along the floor, all the trivia of life, all the little things that, populate our days, the books we read, the clothes we wear, the socializing we do. What's the meaning? Would it have been worth it? What's the meaning? And this and so much more. It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern through the nerves and patterns on a screen, magic lantern is like a projector. Would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. Would it have been worth it? He says it, doesn't he? Over and over again. Let's count. Let's count how many times he says it. So there it is, okay? There it is. So one, oh, excuse me, apologies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. That's repetition. Would it have been worthwhile? Would it have been worth it? Would what have been worthwhile? Would what have been worth what? The gamble, the risk of exposure, the rejection, the adventure of just going and doing the thing that he wants to do, of reaching with the expectation of failure, but reaching anyway, of bursting out of this casing that he has all around him, of this security bunker that he's built around him, of exposing his frailty and his neediness and his his vulnerability to the world at the risk of being rejected, would that have given his life some meaning? So again, it's not even the idea of success that he regrets, it's the idea of not trying. It's important, isn't it? The idea of not trying, that's the ultimate failure. He, I mentioned Hamlet earlier on. He doesn't even think he's, you know, as heroic. At least Hamlet eventually got something done. At least Hamlet, after all his procrastination, acted. But no, I am not Prince Hamlet. So we had the literary allusion to Dante's Inferno at the start. We've had the two biblical allusions um, in the course of the poem, and now we have another literary allusion, a reference to Shakespeare. So I remember I said about at the start of this analysis how, when you're looking at Eliot, you're looking at very much like academic poetry, intellectual poetry. This is a guy whose work is built off like great learning, and in order to understand his work, you have to have some understanding of that learning. But I think you get the whole John the Baptist, getting his head chopped off and the fear of putting your head out there to be in danger. I think you get the idea of, Hamlet and not being able to act. But he says, I'm not even Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I'm an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, to start a scene or two. He's all he is in the movie of life, he's just an extra with no lines. That's how he feels. Advised the prince, no doubt, an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous. And then the second Shakespearean reference to King Lear, which you should recognise, almost at times the fool, which I think is harsh because I think the fool is great. But it comes back, doesn't it, to his insecurity. That's who he is. He's a bit part player. He's not the star. He's not the hero. He's not even a tragic hero. He's just an incidental character who's there to fill in the background, somewhat ridiculous, always, emblematic of folly. This is how he sees himself. He's a man who has failed in life and thinks that maybe that was always his destiny. And now we reach the end. I grow old, ellipsis. I grow old, aging. I shall wear the... Sorry, for the third time in the poem. A brilliant example of juxtaposition. The profound, I grow old, aging. And then, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Then the ridiculous, there's a sense of humour in this poem. There really is. With that contrast between the profound and the trivial. Shall I part my hair behind? What that means is like a comb over. So you grow your hair long at the back and then you brush it off forward to cover up your baldness because you're so insecure. And then I mentioned 3 lines that I think are the core of this poem. To prepare a face to meet the faces that we meet. I think that's it. In the room, the women come and go. Talking of Michelangelo. I have measured out my life in coffee spoons. This is very famous as well, and maybe it's quote number 4. You can learn whatever quote you want. Your teacher will tell you this is important, that's important, and hopefully you're capable of making your own decisions and not being, dictated to by me. But just in terms of easy points to make, this is another amazing symbol. Do I dare? Remember he said, do I dare, do I dare? So do I dare? You think do I dare? You think of like drama and profound decisions. But his is, do I dare eat a peach? This is getting to me, this poem. Again, it's about being paralysed by trivial things. Again, it's about human weakness and the tragedy that we have the consciousness to be aware of the fact that we are weak. That's the poem. I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. If there's magic in the world, it's not for him. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back. Amazing imagery here. And this is the first time that we leave the urban landscape. We're now in a completely different world. We're on a beach. We can feel the wind. We can taste the salt in the air. We can, hear the sounds of the waves, and we can see the mermaids. So there is magic in the world, but it's in imagination, not in reality. When the wind blows the water white and black, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. Folks, I love my job so much, and it's because I get to read this stuff. It's so good. I don't feel I've just done it any justice. I'm going to do another video on this, not today, but I'll do another one, just to try and be a bit concise in what matters in this poem. But look at that last. Do you see that dreamlike sequence at the end? The dreamlike sequence that takes him away from the smoke and the fog and the disappointment and the paranoia and the fear of his life, and brings him to a beach where there's mermaids and there's life and there's freedom and there's air that can be breathed, and then human voices wake him and he drowns. He's not drowning in water. He's drowning in mediocrity. He's drowning in trivia. He's drowning in insecurities. So there's the difference between the dream of life, the magic and the freedom and the freshness of life, and the reality of life, which is killing. Bleak indeed. It's an extraordinary poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It's one of the greatest poems, one of the greatest pieces of writing I've ever read. I'm actually going to go back and read it again now when I finish this. But I hope you found that in some way useful, and I apologise for the delay with it. There's just going to be another video on this. Okay.